So we know that, osteoporosis is basically a result of bone remodeling where you're unfortunately not producing bone to keep up with the rate at which you're losing bone. And as we get older, and for women, especially as their estrogen falls, they tend to go more in the negative direction in terms of bone formation. So what we know is gut health, and when I say gut health, I'm really talking about your gut microbiome. That can affect your bone strength in a few different ways. One very direct way is the microbiome has been shown that there's certain strains that can activate more of the bone forming cells and other strains that activate more of the bone destroying cells. We know that good intact gut lining is essential and linked to bone health. So that's sort of what we knew before, but we didn't really understand exactly why. And now I think we're learning that the gut microbiome is sort of the missing link there.
If you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. It's a little red button. You punch that, and it's going to notify you every time we put out a new episode that can help you improve your bone health. And then also, if you haven't done so already, head over to BoneCoach.com, sign up for the free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. That's going to walk you through everything you need to be doing right now to get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. After you do those two things, go ahead and press play on this episode, and I'll see you inside. Welcome to this episode of the BoneCoach Show. Joining us today to explore gut health, our microbiome, and how this affects our bones and well-being is Dr. Roshini Raj. Dr. Roshini Raj is a board-certified gastroenterologist, Today Show contributor, and author of Gut Renovation. Dr. Roshini Raj is a graduate of Harvard College and NYU School of Medicine. She's a board-certified gastroenterologist with an active practice and holds a faculty position as associate professor of medicine at the NYU Grossman School of Medicine. She has a successful second career as a television personality and medical journalist. In 2015, Dr. Raj founded Tula Skincare, a probiotic-based skincare line sold through Ulta Beauty, Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom, Tula.com, Amazon, and QVC. Her most recent venture, YayDay, is a digestive super supplement formulated with magnesium, fiber, and enzymes designed to help those who don't get enough fiber in their diet with better sleep and digestion. Dr. Raj appears regularly as a contributor discussing a range of health topics on shows including Today, Inside Edition, Dr. Oz, and Rachel Ray, and on networks such as CNN and Fox News. She's also appeared on many other programs and channels, and she is the author of What the Yuck, the Freaky and Fabulous Truth About Your Body, and Gut Renovation, Unlock the Age-Defying Power of the Microbiome to Remodel Your Health from the Inside Out. She lives in Manhattan with her two sons. Dr. Raj, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here, and it's a pleasure to discuss this topic with you because it's such an important topic. And I'd love to start out by talking about what role does gut health play in our overall health, and how has this become a more prevalent topic here in more recent years?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is certainly a passion of mine and has been for 20 years now. So I am, as you said, a practicing gastroenterologist, and I first learned about the microbiome over 20 years ago. I was finishing up my training at NYU as a GI doctor, and we learned about this idea of probiotics, healthy bacteria, and the fact that we have a whole community, trillions of organisms living inside our gut, and that's what we call the gut microbiome, and the fact that they're really important because they exert many different effects, both potentially good or bad, on the rest of our body. Now, when I first learned about it many years ago, we were really just talking about it within the digestive world. And we knew that if you had an imbalanced microbiome, so too many of the bad bacteria, not as many as the good, you could develop inflammation of your colon, you could get diarrhea. Certainly, if you took antibiotics and that upset your balance, certain things could happen within your gut. But over the years, what really fascinated me was to watch the evolution and really the explosion of research looking into the microbiome and how it not only can affect your digestion, but absolutely from head to toe literally almost every body system and every health problem or disease can trace some links back to what's going on internally in your microbiome. And that's what really prompted me, well, number one, to found Tula, the probiotic skincare line that you mentioned, because I was seeing even in my practice how my patients who were taking better care of their gut health were noticing changes in their skin, positive changes in their skin. And I looked into the research, and topically applying probiotic extracts, but also internally ingesting probiotics really had some direct skin benefits. But then now, much more recently, writing my book, which was published 2 years ago, Gut Renovation, I looked at all the research that was available, linking gut microbiome to heart health, metabolism, obesity, mental health, and just saw there was so much real proof and great evidence that changes in your microbiome, or when they're imbalanced, can really cause changes in every body system, including bone health, which we'll get into. But how does that really work? Why is the gut so important? And this is part of what prompted me to start YayDay, of course, which is, as you said, the recent fiber magnesium enzyme supplement. And the way it works is your microbiome contains, as I said, good and bad bacteria. And really, if you have more of the good bacteria and it's in balance, those bacteria have a few jobs, one of which is to keep the lining of your gut really tight and intact and not permeable, so things can't leak through your gut into your bloodstream. Because at any given time within our gut or our intestine, we have food, of course, but we might have some bacteria and potential harmful toxins. As long as they're in your gut, it's okay. But if they're allowed to leak through the lining, through little cracks in the lining into your bloodstream, that can trigger inflammation. And we now know that inflammation is kind of the root of all evils. Many diseases can trace their origins back to inflammation. So that's why the gut microbiome is so important, because it can really affect how strong that barrier is, that lining is, and make sure that it keeps things in. Or if it's not a well-balanced microbiome, things can leak out and trigger inflammation. Another way that your gut microbiome can then impact the development of many different diseases is because a lot of your immune system is actually based in your gut. So if your gut microbiome is not working properly, you can have a decreased immune system. And so we know that probiotics, for example, can very much help with your immunity. People who don't have a balanced microbiome can get sick more often. We even saw in COVID, they did studies showing that people whose gut health was not, really optimal were more likely to get COVID or get more severe COVID. So that's another way. And then hormones is another aspect of how gut health is related to overall health, because hormones as well can be either created by your gut or they can be modulated by your gut. So, we know that things like estrogen and testosterone, they can be modulated by metabolites that are created from your gut microbiome. So it's really, it has this sort of all-encompassing effect on many different aspects of your body. One of the things I find fascinating is the gut-mind connection, and the fact that we have, just millions of nerve cells lining the intestine and the gut. And we also have a two-way conversation. So we have nerve cells, signals going on constantly between your gut and your brain at any given time. And so much so that we often refer to the gut as your second brain or your little brain. We make over 80% of the serotonin in our body is actually created in our gut. So there's just so many connections there. It's a very powerful, people are now calling it another organ almost, because it has so many amazing effects. And those are some of the mechanisms how your gut health can impact your overall health.
And as you were writing Gut Renovation, what research did you come across that was maybe really surprising or fascinating to you?
Yeah, like I said, I already knew a lot of how the gut affected digestion and your colon health and all of that. And I knew that it had some effects with immunity and skin health I had already looked into because I had started a skincare line. But then I just really kind of, looked at everything because I wanted to be very complete with the book. And so one of the things that just overall surprised me was that literally every disease I looked at, there was either a clear link or a very possible and probable link with the gut microbiome. So that was kind of like, it almost seems sort of like too good to be true or too common to be true, but it really, whether it was Alzheimer's or autism or psoriasis or rheumatoid arthritis, everything was looking like it had some effect with the gut and or vice versa. But some of the things I found really interesting were things like I did. So the reason I called the book Gut Renovation is every chapter was sort of called a room, and it was a metaphor on renovating a house room by room. So the bedroom chapter is all about how sleep affects your gut. The kitchen chapter is all about diet and the relationship with your gut. But I had a home gym chapter, which is about how exercise affects your gut and vice versa. And I wasn't so surprised to learn that regularly exercising is beneficial for your gut, because we just know exercise is so great for so many parts of your body. So I was like, okay, that's not a big shock. But what did surprise me was that different gut bacteria in different proportions can actually enhance your exercise performance. So things like stamina, the way people who lift weights can metabolize lactic acid, which is one of the things that affects like how you can, lift weights without developing muscle aches and things like that. Endurance. So those are things that I was like, wow, I wouldn't think your gut microbiome could necessarily make a marathon runner run longer, or a distance runner. All of those things actually did have connections as well. And then the other thing that I think is probably one of the most fascinating is really the mental health and gut health connection. And, I saw some studies, and granted, these were right now in animals, but there are many studies looking at mental health and in humans and gut health. But this specific one was looking at actual personality differences depending on the microbiome. And so you might think, well, how do you figure out a personality in a mouse, which is what this study was looking at. But they were looking at things like risk-taking behavior. So there's the more risk-averse mice and the way they do it is they give them like a challenge. So there's a piece of cheese, but they have to go through a big obstacle course, and it's a little risky. And some mice are more likely to go for it, take the risk to get the cheese. And some are more timid, and they'll shy away from it if it seems too dangerous. And they compared their microbiomes, and they found that the ones that were willing to take more risks had a different profile in terms of certain strains of bacteria compared to the more shy ones or timid ones. And what's really interesting is when they transplanted the microbiome of, let's say, the riskier one to the shy one became more bold and more, likely to take risks. So to me, that's so fascinating that maybe aspects of our personality are being dictated by the bacteria. And also maybe we can change aspects of our personality by changing maybe probiotics that we take, or even just what we're eating and how it might be fostering certain types of bacteria. And we're not there yet with humans to know exactly which strains and how to do it. But I do think it's coming down the road. And I just find the whole thing so incredibly interesting.
That is so fascinating. And I know like the whole field of fecal transplant and that's really, really interesting too. But let's talk about the gut health, bone health connection.
Yeah.
How does gut health link to bone health, particularly in the context of osteoporosis too?
Right. So we know that, osteoporosis is basically a result of bone remodeling, where you're unfortunately not producing bone to keep up with the rate at which you're losing bone. And we're always, we have cells that sort of eat up bone tissue and cause you bone loss. And then we have cells that produce bone. And you really obviously want to have more of the bone producing kind of cells, the osteoblasts, than the osteoclasts, which are kind of eating up your bone. And as we get older, and for women, especially as their estrogen falls, they tend to go more in the negative direction in terms of bone formation. So what we know is gut health, and when I say gut health, I'm really talking about your gut microbiome. That can affect your bone strength in a few different ways. One very direct way is the microbiome has been shown that there are certain strains that can activate more of the bone forming cells, and other strains that activate more of the bone destroying cells. And so depending on how much you have of each, you'll either have more likelihood of developing osteoporosis or less likelihood of that. So that's one thing. Also, your bacteria your good bacteria produce things called short chain fatty acids. So these are metabolites of the bacteria, and those can actually also help with bone formation. So something called butyrate is an example of a short chain fatty acid, which is very, very beneficial for bone health. But the other things I had mentioned earlier, how your gut microbiome can affect immune cells and hormones. Well, both immune cells and hormones can play also a role in osteoporosis development. So we know that there are certain types of immune cells called T cells, and a subtype of a T cell can actually help bone formation, and other T cells can do the opposite. And same thing with hormones. We know that estrogen is very important for bone strength, and how you sort of metabolize estrogen and how much you have around is also dependent on your gut microbiome. So those are kind of three different ways that you can really affect bone strength with your gut microbiome. And then the last thing I would say is we know calcium and vitamin D, are essential for bone strength, and even how we metabolize and absorb those vitamins and minerals are actually dependent on gut microbiome activity as well. So there are many different ways, why your gut health can really affect your bone health. And that's why it's so important and by the way, an example that we've known for many years is people who have inflammatory bowel disease or celiac disease. So these are diseases where you get inflammation in the lining of your intestine. They tend to develop osteoporosis earlier and at a higher rate, because we know that good intact gut lining is essential and linked to bone health. So that's sort of what we knew before, but we didn't really understand exactly why. And now I think we're learning that the gut microbiome is sort of the missing link there.
Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to take one more minute to talk about if you are somebody who was newly diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, and you're at a point where you're stressed, you're worried, you're overwhelmed, you have no idea where to start or how to get started getting confident in your plan. I want to tell you about the Stronger Bone Solution Program. Over 5,000 people have come through this Stronger Bone Solution Program, and it walks you through the exact process you need to fill in the missing pieces, uncover critical things in your plan that you may not be aware of, and help you make modifications, adjustments, and tweaks to get you to the place where you're building stronger bones. I want you to get confident in your plan so that you can focus on living life and enjoying the life that you deserve with the people you love most. So if that's where you want to be, head over to bonecoach.com/apply and apply for our Stronger Bone Solution Program right now. I'm Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to see you inside this program. I want to help you get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. Hope to see you inside very soon. Let's get back to the episode. Now, you just touched on short chain fatty acids. I think it's a great transition to now talk about fiber and what is fiber's role in gut health?
Absolutely. So this is certainly the inspiration for me starting YayDay. And fiber, we've been hearing about fiber for years. A high fiber diet is good for you. And we know that comes in most plants, vegetables, whole grains, things of that nature, legumes, etc. And now we know that one of the reasons why fiber is so good for you is it really serves as a prebiotic. And what that means is a food for your healthy bacteria. So a probiotic is literally a healthy bacteria, a bacteria that gives you some sort of health benefit. And we have good bacteria in our intestine at any given time. But to feed those bacteria and to fuel the growth of your good bacteria, you need prebiotics. And fiber serves as a prebiotic. So that's why fiber is so essential, because it really is the building block that helps keep all of your good bacteria plentiful and abundant and in the right balance. And the unfortunate thing is studies have shown that over 90% of Americans are not getting the recommended amount of fiber in their diet daily. So the recommended amount is quite a lot. It's 25 to 30 grams. It depends a little bit on age and gender, but that's the range. That is something that you can achieve in your diet, but you have to really work at it and think about it. And a lot of people don't. And that's why, fiber supplementation can be really helpful to at least ensure that, once a day or twice a day, you're getting at least a 5-gram dose in there in addition to your diet. So specifically, fiber does help in terms of the microbiome. It also helps your gut health because it can just help you be more regular with your bowels in terms of bulking up the stool, allowing the stool to pass more easily. I end up prescribing fiber for 70% of the people that walk into my office because it's good for so many things. It's good for constipation, can be good for diarrhea, can be good for bloating, it can be good for hemorrhoids. So there are a lot of different reasons why people should be taking fiber. But one of the downsides of fiber, especially if you take it too quickly, is the bloating side effect that many people experience. And I've certainly seen that a lot of my patients who start fiber don't stick with it because of that. And that's why we put in the digestive enzymes into our product to make sure that took care of the bloating issues so that people could take the fiber, enjoy it, enjoy the benefits without some of the headaches associated with it. And then the last thing is we added magnesium into YayDay because we understand that their gut-mind connection is so strong. And if you're taking magnesium at night, and our product is meant to be taken at night, it helps you sleep, it helps you be calmer, and both sleep and being less anxious really have a positive effect on your gut health. So we didn't want to, give you just the gut side of it. We wanted to give the gut-mind side as well. We know magnesium is an important mineral also for bone strength. So it can play a role there too.
Absolutely. And for somebody, because we do see this quite a bit, people that have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, any important considerations for someone with SIBO when it comes to fiber?
Yeah, I mean, SIBO is, as you said, it's a presence or overgrowth of bacteria in an area of your gut that shouldn't be there, which is your small intestine. And really for SIBO, it's not like the fiber you're taking is going to be feeding that adversely compared to your real good gut bacteria. I mean, SIBO, if you have it, really should be treated by eliminating that bacteria in the small intestine. And then you can go and take your probiotics and your fiber as well. And
in terms of any other potential health benefits, I know you talked about quite a few there for gut health and overall health. Anything else that you want to make sure we touch on in terms of health benefits for fiber?
Yeah, no, there are so many. And I'm glad you asked. We're focused on gut health with YayDay, and I'm a gastroenterologist, but we know for sure that, fiber has been shown to lower cholesterol. It helps with weight management because it really does make you feel full and more satiated than another higher calorie meal would, that then you eat it and you get all the calories, but you're hungry, an hour later. So fiber is great if you're trying to manage weight. It does lower cholesterol as well if you're looking for cholesterol management. It's been shown to lower blood pressure. It's been associated with decreased risk of colon cancer. So those are some amazing benefits. And we're probably going to learn more because just as fiber, I already told you that your gut microbiome helps everything. Well, fiber helps your gut microbiome. So it's sort of indirectly helping everything in that sense because, there are many things you can do to help your microbiome, and I'm happy to talk about them, now. But if someone asks me, what's the number one? If I'm only going to do one thing you tell me today, what should I do to help my microbiome? And my answer would be increase your fiber intake.
Okay, so let's talk about YayDay specifically, the birth of YayDay, how this came about, and if you want to tell us about the product. And then I would love to hear, after increasing fiber, what are those other steps for improving your microbiome that we could take as well?
Absolutely. So YayDay was born because, like I said, for over 20 years, I've been really obsessed with the microbiome, gut health, how it plays a role in overall health. And I first started the skincare company, and I saw the connection between the gut and the skin. And it was a really well-received and continues to be like a well-received skincare line, very popular. And that was great. But then I was just seeing more and more research on how we should be feeding our microbiome and how fiber was such a key part of that. And I also saw, gut health, as you know, has become such a popular topic. It's all over TikTok. It's all over Instagram. There's a lot of information out there. There are a lot of products out there, but it's also become a bit, in my mind, overcomplicated, kind of difficult to understand. There's products that have 20 different ingredients that you're not sure which is for what. And I kind of wanted to attack this issue of gut health in a very simple and clear way. And that's why I was like, I know fiber is the number one thing you should be doing, and 90% of Americans aren't doing it. So that seems like a no-brainer. But let's not forget, gut mind is extremely important. Let's put one ingredient in there for gut mind. And because fiber is so hard to take, and I'd seen, what are the fibers out there right now? They don't taste good. They cause bloating. People just associate them with sort of their 90-year-old grandmother, and they don't feel like it's for them. It doesn't speak to them. So I was like, fiber needs a rehaul. It needs a rebrand. It needs better taste, better packaging, and simpler formulas, clean formulas. And so that's really how YayDay was formed. And we call it kind of like the triple threat. Of course, prebiotic fiber is the core, but we have magnesium in a really nice, healthy dose. We have the digestive enzymes that specifically digest fiber so that you can take it more easily and absorb it better. And then, and so that's how it was born.
Wonderful. Can you help us understand when we say just, take more fiber, there are different types of fiber, right?
Yeah.
What are the types of fiber and which ones should we be focused on?
Right. So there's soluble and insoluble fiber, and that kind of means exactly what it sounds like. So the insoluble fiber is it's not digested, it doesn't dissolve in your body, and whereas insoluble fiber does dissolve into your digestive tract before it reaches your colon. But both of them are important, and also many fruits and vegetables have some components of both. So I actually wouldn't get too caught up in I'm having this much of soluble or that much of insoluble. I would just say overall as a category, if you're upping your fiber, you're going to get a healthy mix of both. They're both important and they both help with, many different aspects of your health and your gut health. But yeah, for example, to get, let's say the 25 grams of fiber I was talking about, that would usually consist of probably 7 or 8 apples. And when you think about that, no one wants to have 7 or 8 apples in one day. I mean, my son loves apples, but he'll have max probably 3 in a day. And even that I think is a bit crazy. So of course you can get variety and you should aim to really have in a plate of a meal, let's say your lunch plate, at least 3/4 of it really should be fruits and vegetables. And I'm not sure how many people are doing that, but that is really the goal. But not everyone's achieving that with every meal. And even if you're doing that, it takes some work to get that recommended amount. And sometimes people say, well, I feel fine and I go to the bathroom regularly. Does that mean I'm getting enough fiber? And the truth is, it sounds like you're getting enough fiber to move your bowels regularly, which is great. But to have these other kind of more silent benefits in terms of are you really optimally feeding your microbiome, you may not be. And that's why, fiber supplements are great, or you can really sit down and calculate and say, well, am I getting 25 to 30 grams? But if you're not, I think supplementation can be helpful.
And after fiber, what are some of the other steps that you would recommend for somebody trying to cultivate a healthy gut garden and microbiome?
Yes, I love the garden metaphor because yes, the fiber is like the fertilizer for the garden of beautiful flowers, your beautiful healthy bacteria. Yes, so there are many things. So I certainly don't want to say you just take fiber and you're done. And that was kind of the point of my book as well. It was number one about all the research, and this is why it's so important. And here's the proof. But sort of the second half of the book is, well, then what should we do about it, and how can we take care of our microbiome? So diet, of course, we talked about fiber, but also incorporating probiotic rich foods into your diet. So fermented foods should also be a daily part of your diet. And whether that's, for me, the easiest thing I like to do is just have my yogurt with active, cultures in the morning. But you can, if you're a sauerkraut fan or kimchi or tempeh, these are miso, these are things that also, kefir is another one that contain. And what's nice about the foods or drinks with probiotics is they usually have a nice mix, as opposed to just taking a pill that has one strain or a few strains. So that's one thing to do. There are other really healthy ingredients in your diet that are good for your microbiome. So most fruits and vegetables have a great array of antioxidants and polyphenols, and those are actually good for fostering a healthy gut lining and a healthy microbiome. Omega-3 fatty acids are also really good. So, walnuts and fatty fish, those can actually help with your gut microbiome. And then there are certain things that are not good for your microbiome that you should be keeping an eye on. So ultra-processed foods, refined sugar, those are things that actually can cause shifts towards a more unhealthy pattern of bacteria in your gut. Alcohol as well is kind of directly toxic to your gut health. So it's not a big surprise there, but that can do it as well. And then antibiotics are like the worst thing you can do for your microbiome. And while they are sometimes necessary in certain situations, they should really only be used when absolutely necessary. So use sparingly if possible. And then that's just the diet piece. The reason why my book has all the different chapters is so many other parts of our health affect our microbiome and vice versa. Our microbiome affects other parts of our lifestyle. So sleep is a big one. They've done some kind of, I find them fun studies of medical students who are notoriously sleep deprived. And they actually looked at med students going through like a 1-month night shift rotation where their sleep is really thrown off and their circadian rhythms are off. And they saw that before, comparing before and after the night shift month, they did have a shift towards an unhealthy microbiome profile. So not sleeping well is actually going to detrimentally affect your gut health. And then the reverse is also true, where they've looked at certain people who have chronic insomnia and people who don't, and they see certain strains of bacteria are associated with insomnia and certain strains are associated with better sleep. So there's a few, it's a kind of two-way relationship that can occur. And so sleep, ensuring a good night's sleep, and we can, there are many ways to do that or to try to do that, but that will really help with your microbiome. Exercising regularly, I touched on that a little bit, but we know exercise is great for every aspect of your health, but it also can, help keep a balanced microbiome. Stress management is a big thing. So being stressed or being anxious or being depressed, all of those things obviously don't feel good, but they also, many of the hormones that are released when we are chronically stressed can directly cause, a shift to an unhealthy microbiome pattern. So that is another thing that if you can, whether it's meditation or yoga or exercise, again, which is helpful for stress management, that can be beneficial for your microbiome. Those are some of the major ones, I would say.
And so many crossovers there with bone health too, as we start to implement some of these things, you'll notice for the sleep and the stress reduction and the changes in diet and nutrition, there are so many similarities, and you can start to see improvements, not just in your bone health or your gut health, but your general health across the board as well. So, so important. Can we talk about the connection between our biological age and the microbiome?
Yeah, this is a really fascinating one. And it's always struck me, being in practice where I'll have some patients who are 46 years old, but they, to me, look, come into my office like hunched over, miserable, slowly walking, like they look easily, they could be 20 years older. And then I have my 80-year-old woman who literally jumps on the exam table with so much energy and so much bigger. And I realize like age is really just a number. It does not necessarily reflect what's going on internally. And they really looked at how your microbiome kind of affects how you age. And it really does have a profound impact. So, for example, they took a group of 70-year-olds, people in their 70s, and there were some that they kind of called the frail 70-year-olds. And that was based on sort of how they walk, what's their muscle strength, things like that. And then they compared them to very vigorous, more healthy 70-year-olds. And they saw that there were differences in their microbiome. So, which suggests that either something about being frail causes a bad change in your microbiome, or probably the reverse, that if you have a healthy sort of young microbiome, then you are going to look and feel younger as well. And they've done a few studies like this, so much so that they now call, there's something called your microbiologic age as opposed to your chronologic age, meaning if you have that sort of young profile in your microbiome, really that's what's going to determine how you age in general and how you look. And even something as superficial as wrinkles, which, we know is definitely one of the most common signs of aging. We know that a lot of wrinkle formation is due to, loss of collagen and elastin in the skin. And that can happen because of an overall body inflammation. And again, because we talked about how gut microbiome changes can cause inflammation, that's like one way that we see the gut can affect a sign of aging, which in this case is the skin aging. And that was one of the things we looked at certainly with Tula, my skincare line. But, that's one example. Muscle loss and muscles, which is like another sign of aging, is something that also is related to the gut microbiome. But then just the development of chronic diseases, which is what I consider the major part of aging, right? Like if you never developed a chronic disease in your life, you're going to look and feel very young for a very long time. So, but all of those chronic diseases that make us look and feel older are actually related to your gut microbiome as well. So it certainly plays a big role in aging in general.
That's fantastic. Now, before we tell everybody where to find YayDay and where they can find you, I'd love for you to share anything that you're excited about that's on the horizon or that you see in the field as a practicing physician and as somebody who is just really deeply entrenched in this research around gut health and the microbiome. What excites you the most?
Yeah, I think what excites me the most is, I talked so much about how your gut microbiome is connected to many of these diseases that millions of people are suffering from. We're not quite there yet, but I think we will be there soon, where we can actually give someone a probiotic pill or some mixture of bacteria that's actually going to treat the disease better or equivalent to a medication, which, and in the world of osteoporosis, so many of these medicines have such difficult side effects that there's, sometimes it's not even worth the side effects, or they're very hard to tolerate. And that's from almost every disease out there. I mean, certainly things like depression, things like osteoporosis. And as a GI doctor, I see a lot of the side effects of some of those drugs as well. And so the fact that in almost every disease, I see a potential of getting a pretty much side effect free, because probiotics actually really don't cause side effects for the most part. That kind of alternative, I think it's really just going to revolutionize medicine and pharmaceuticals and all of those things. And so I'm really excited at that prospect.
I love it. Thanks so much for sharing that too. And let's have everybody, this has been such a great episode. I'm sure our audience learned a lot, and maybe you could share where people can find you, and then also where people can find YayDay. And then I know you have a special gift for our audience, which I believe is 15% off or something like that if they use the code BoneCoach. So we'll link to all that in the show notes, but if you want to let them know where they can find you.
Thank you so much. I'd love to. Yeah. So I am on social channels. It's Dr. for Dr. Roshini Raj. And my website is gutrenovation.net, which is, of course, after my book. And then YayDay is at myYayday.com.
Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Bone Coach Show. If you're finding it helpful, please leave a positive rating and review. Hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast or the channel. That lets us help more people and reach and serve more people. And it also lets us know that this is helpful to you on your journey to better health and stronger bones. And then also, right down in the show notes, you can actually find a link to my free Bone Healthy Recipes Guide. That's going to give you access to some amazing and delicious recipes to support your journey to stronger bones. And then also, we have a link to my free Stronger Bones Masterclass in the show notes too. And that is the 3-step process that has helped people in over 1,500 cities around the world get confident in their plan for stronger bones. Over 110,000 people have taken part in this, and it's been really, really helpful for them. And I want you to have free access to it too. So add your name and email right down there in the show notes, get access to that free Stronger Bones Masterclass, and let's get you confident in your Stronger Bones plan today. Wonderful. So we're going to link to all those resources in the show notes. Again, use code BoneCoach at myYayDay.com. You're going to get, I believe, 15% off your purchase. And I just want to thank you again so much for your time, Dr. Roshini Raj. And for everybody listening, you can find all the resources, show notes, everything mentioned here at BoneCoach.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. Hope you found that episode helpful and that you enjoyed it. Just one last reminder, if you haven't done so already, head over to BoneCoach.com, sign up for your free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. It's going to tell you everything you need to do to start getting on the path to improvement. Hope you found this helpful. I'm your Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I'll see you soon.